Welcome back to episode 3 of the Minot Business Podcast, sponsored by Bennett Creative Media. We have a very, very special guest today, Jonathan Starr. Now, we're going to get right into a little bit of an introduction, and I know a little bit about you. The people don't know as much as I probably do, but maybe just give us a quick breakdown. What do you do? You know, what is your business, and what does that all entail?
Right. Yeah. It's digital marketing. And so everybody knows exactly what that is. Just
everyone thinks they do.
Everyone thinks they do. So when we began, I started out just website design, and that was fun. But the problem with that is you mentioned you're building a story brand, and that book tells you better than anything. A website does you no good.
Yeah.
You actually need to have some things around it. So what we started doing is actually building out some services around just creating a website, and also creating a website with intention.
Okay.
So we're not just out there building a fancy website. Some customers want that, just a nice brochure website, tell about we need a website.
Yeah.
We get that. But
everyone thinks they need a website to start with, eh?
And
they're like,
right.
We don't know where to take it, but we need a website.
You know, it would be interesting to see some of this. I mean, Facebook itself started with Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So, but
The Social Network is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, that is unreal.
Yeah. Right. Mark Zuckerberg is unbelievable. But you don't need a website starting out, first off. And what we do, we help small businesses build and expand their online presence digitally. That's been our focus. We do that by building a website with intention. If they need it, that might just be a landing page for some businesses.
Yep.
It might be a full-on website with a bunch of individual landing pages for specific services and stuff like that. So
when you talk about landing, I'm going to cut you off a little bit, but landing page wise, we were just talking about this book before we hit record.
Yeah.
And it really talks about simplifying your marketing message. Have you found that landing pages sometimes just work better for clients rather than a full 15-page website?
Yeah, 100%. So there's several things that a landing page does, and it depends on what your KPI is, to use a big time word or acronym. It depends on
performance indicator for you non-business people out there, right? Am I
yes,
right?
You're right.
I think I've heard that like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But
so
we're getting technical.
Yeah. What's your goal? Which is basically what a KPI is. What's your goal of that landing page? I've seen businesses set up a landing page simply because there's a search term they want to rank for. Okay. And so that's what that landing page's goal is. And it can be really good at that goal. And you might be like, that's a terrible landing page, but what's the goal of it? Because there's no way for you to tell me if it's good or bad without knowing the goal.
Yeah.
So landing pages, some companies, we've built them for companies where they just needed an online presence. They needed a place where they could push traffic to if they're running an ad, something along those lines. And landing pages work great for businesses like that.
Okay.
If you're a 100 employee company, then probably a landing page is a little bit small for you at this point. But
might need a little bit more.
And that comes with your brand. So the goal of that website is completely different than what
and just getting leads or something like that.
Exactly.
So from my knowledge, you started as StarrWeb Marketing. Then did you do a little bit of a branding transition, or talk to me about how that kind of played out?
It's an epic story. So at the time, I landed my first client and I basically didn't have anything set up.
Okay.
This is
like no website, no nothing? No socials?
Man. Nothing.
Why did they decide to go with you? Did you just buffalo them a little bit?
You know, I don't know why they decided to go with me, really, because I was a noob at everything. But
you need those businesses in the beginning that take a shot on you, though.
And it was a person. There's always that person that it was a realtor. Okay. And I think I had referred somebody to her or something like that. And so what goes around comes around. Yeah. She tried to negotiate with me, and my price is already dirt low. I'm like, dude, I can't do that. So I'm sorry.
Everyone starts out and their prices are like $15. Just get me a meal and I'll be good.
Yeah, exactly. And so I work at a bank at the time. And so I go to set up my account and get it all set up. It was a sole prop, so they didn't need a legal business name. Yep. So I didn't buy my domain name though. And so I go to buy my domain name because, that's $10 and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I go to buy my domain name and I researched it was good to go. It wasn't taken, but 2 weeks later I go to buy it and it's gone. Oh, I'm like, dude.
And what was that domain name?
It's saving grace that is gone. Okay. It was JStarr Design.
JStarr Design. Okay.
That's where we were going to start out at.
I mean, I don't hate it,
but my name still is not great, but it's better than JStarr Design.
Well, I like Starr. It's Starr Marketing now, right?
Right now it is StarrWeb Marketing.
Okay.
And so instead of going with JStarr Design, I went with StarrWeb Vision. because
Okay.
I put way too much
that's what it
thought.
was.
I put way too much thought to my name because I was like, it's kind of like a spider web,
Yep.
except it's a StarrWeb, because we want to be actually a decent thought. We want to connect.
Yeah.
We want to help people connect. And that's where that came from. And then vision, because we wanted to look forward. Like the most cheesiest part, vision was so unnecessary. If it was just StarrWeb, that would have been better.
Yeah.
But then there was a lot of what would happen is clients would always be like, you'd tell them your business name and they'd be like, oh, so what do you do? And it's like, I ain't Google. Nobody's going to ever just know.
Exactly.
So let's go and get this a little more descriptive. And so about 2 or 3 years ago, we went to StarrWeb Marketing, and then we did also full on rebrand for that too. So,
So is it StarrWeb Marketing still, or is it Starr Marketing, or is it kind of both?
it's StarrWeb Marketing. Some people probably know us as Starr Marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. This brings up a really good conversation. Like, what do I need to do to my name to make it more simple? It feels simple, but
Yeah,
I
like
not as simple as Easton Bennett Creative.
Well, and that's where I've always liked. I battled back and forth on whether I wanted my name in the business name.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So Bennett Creative Media, and I was like, do I want it because
I said it wrong?
No, that's okay. And then it's like, well, if I sell it down the road one day,
Right.
do you want to sell with your name in it?
And that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Because that's what it came down to me. My name is Starr. Like, somebody could just take one R off and it's nameless.
Exactly.
A lot of people tell me my name's cool. I don't think so. So I don't know.
Well, I like the Starr with 2 R's. It kind of differentiates you from
It's
what's
easy.
in the sky.
Yeah, for sure. And it's easier to get domain names.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so let's throw it back to kind of when you started, circa whatever year it was. How did you?
2014.
2014 is that when it was? So what was the process? Were you always interested in web design? Did you always know you were business minded? What kind of jump started you into the industry?
I'd always been a little entrepreneur, but
Okay.
that's a pet peeve of mine. People go and use the word entrepreneur, and I feel like they abuse it.
Yeah.
All right. So I wasn't really an entrepreneur, but I was always selling something to make money. No, that's something I was all
I'd
about.
say that counts.
So that was me. And so what happened was really curiosity. I had enjoyed the internet. Everybody did, but I had more curiosity than just Googling stuff or whatever it was at that time. And I had been getting some creative juices flowing, things like that. And I came across the Adobe Creative Cloud. I bought a Mac, came across the Adobe Creative Cloud.
Oh.
Yeah, this is way cool, right? So Photoshop, the whole works. First off, I'm homeschooled from my high school. So all you people that took Adobe Photoshop in high school, I didn't do that. I didn't have that opportunity per se. So
You were learning on the fly.
It was a lot.
But you got to do that.
Got to do that. So my first website, I used Adobe Muse, which is now a deprecated program. And first off, it goes to show you how you do it doesn't matter. What was unique about that website is it had to tie into IDX services, which is for real estate agents, so they can actually tie into all the MLS listings that are in a town. Okay, and it's simple yet complicated, but sounds
a little complicated on the base level, but
yeah, that was a unique selling point on that project and why it was actually worth something rather than just a GoDaddy website builder website. And so I was able to integrate that with the Adobe Muse. It felt heroic at the time, and that was our first website. So that's kind of how it came about. It was just playing around, tinkering. Honestly, for the website design, I found templates and I used a template.
There you go.
Because the point was not the website design. It just needed to look nice and then integrate with the IDX.
So did you learn, as far as learning goes, was it kind of like a YouTube university type thing where you were doing tutorials, all
Full
that
graduate
stuff?
from YouTube University.
I also have my degree from there too.
Yeah, it's a good place. When you get 1 million subscribers, you can put your degree on the wall. They make you wait a while.
Exactly. A big play button.
Yeah.
So when you were first starting, learning all of these techniques and these skills and going through YouTube University,
right?
Did you have because I remember when I was doing it, I had the creative juices where like 10 hours a day, I'd be watching videos because I was so amped to learn all this stuff. Were you the same way, or were you kind of trying to figure it out on your own, or how did that work for you?
So at that time I worked full time at the bank. I was in the loan department.
Okay.
Which was not as exciting as making websites.
Yep.
And I think so. You are more creative than I am, and you're in more creative stuff than I am. And so for me, it was more of the technical side is what was more fun to me. And so that, yes, I probably sneaked a few Google searches during work, and things like that, and spent a lot of time after work researching and stuff like that.
Okay.
To work on projects. It was mostly project oriented. I went and I did some stuff, that's standard stuff where you've done it too, where you just go and you build something to build something, trying to duplicate something, test skills, things like that to build out that.
So you were more interested in the actual like technical side of building a website and the coding and all the injections and all that stuff based on or versus like the actual design of it.
Yeah.
That interested
Honestly,
you a little bit more.
If we were to be like transparent here, some days I hate Photoshop.
Yep.
Many days I hate Photoshop actually. And we get by. I was more interested in the integration. I wanted to build things, build products, and which is weird because I'm more creative than I am technical. But I think that the mix there, you can create some cool stuff there because it's not necessarily that I know every single detail. That's one thing that's powerful about the internet. You don't have to know all the way to dig down because obviously there's YouTube and there's a lot of people that will help out if you just get in contact with them. That's
what's really nice. Yeah. You don't even know because I assume before Google and that was even a thing, you had to read textbooks. You had to know everything. And now it's like, if I don't know something, I know in 4 minutes because I just Google search it quick.
Right. So about that. So there's a story I heard. I knew a guy that worked at SRT. Well, one day their like systems went out. So the internet's down for them. So then they all pull out their phones and they're like, okay, well, Google how to fix this because it was one of those problems, I guess. And then they realized, oh yeah, all of our phones are on that same network. So we don't have, so they were going to the textbooks of whatever it is that they're working on to figure out how to fix this problem. So yeah, I can't imagine that every day. I remember my parents would always talk about like when they'd go travel places, they would have to print out like, maps. Okay. So like paper maps that says turn right at exit, whatever. And now we just rip it in our phone and listen to Siri tell us. I've done that. MapQuest. You go to MapQuest, you figure out where you're going, you print out the map. Yes.
Isn't that insane?
My parents did that when we were going on vacation. That's crazy.
And now it's just, we have everything in our fingertips, your car, which is crazy.
Car tells you where to go.
So as far as the business side of things go now, when you got started, and you started building a little bit of traction, how did you go about navigating clients, getting new clients and kind of selling your services? What was that process like? Because I know when I started in the beginning, it's hard when nobody knows who you are. Yeah. And then you kind of just have to work around it. I know for me personally, I shot a lot of free videos and free projects, and I just wanted to get my name out there. How did you go about navigating clients in the beginning? Yeah, I did a little bit of that. Where I built some websites for friends, my church, different things like that for free. And it began to build a portfolio. I sold websites for way too cheap for a while, like $250 for a website. Which I think everybody does at the beginning. You got to do it. Yeah. If you haven't done that, I don't know if you have no idea how to price things at the beginning. That's the one thing you have no idea. Yeah. Yeah. You definitely need to research that. But you also need to make sure you're providing value and understand what value you're providing. So I did a lot of that. So I also, a few things happened and I switched jobs and it allowed me to build. I wasn't very connected. Like I mentioned, I was homeschooled. I didn't have a lot of high school connections and I didn't have a lot of connections in the community. And the job I switched to was actually an outside sales position for the paper, which was great. And like the Minot Daily? Yeah. There you go. Okay. Yeah. So like, I don't know if people really should buy paper ads, but evidently there's a lot of people that still do. And so you would know firsthand, right? Yeah. I was trying to sell them paper ads and I'm thinking you could buy a website. Yeah. Like I'm doing this for a full-time job, but hear me out. Yeah. At 5:01, I will come back here and let's talk about websites. And maybe that happened a couple times. Yeah. But it helped me build a lot of good relationships in the community. And that was the piece that I needed at that point. And so from there, I just kind of identified who I was wanted to work for. And that was the small businesses, which is very generic, but in Minot, it works because we're such a small town. And there's not these huge, there's some big companies here, but there's not huge corporations where it's like, you're not shooting for Microsofts and Googles and Facebooks. Right. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of 5-person team type deal up to 25, 50, 99, it goes up, but there's a lot of that small business entrepreneurship in Minot. And so that was kind of the target. And it worked. So you mentioned you didn't really have many connections at the beginning. Yeah. And, you started to get to know more people through your job at the Minot Daily. Talk to me about what do you think the importance of networking is in business? I hate networking, but it's probably the number one important thing you need. You hate the activity of networking. Yeah, I hate the activity of networking. I hate putting myself out there. But
it's probably the number one thing that a person should do, especially when they're starting out, almost more than your skill. It's like 1A and 1B, because it depends on where you're networking. So at that point, I'm networking for business to get clients.
Okay.
But what about like you've done networking with other creatives, because that will help you produce results. You know, coding, you'll run into a problem. Well, if you had somebody that had 5 years of experience, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
If you have that network. So you need to create networks, whether you are within your business.
Internal and external networks.
There you go.
And that's where, I know in the beginning when I started, a lot like you, I didn't really like going out there and introduce myself like, oh, I'm Easton, I do video, that kind of thing. So the way I got around that was to shoot those free ads.
Gotcha.
Because then I wouldn't directly have to go to them and introduce myself. I would just say, hey, I'll shoot a free video for you.
Right.
And no one ever says no to free.
Nope.
So then that was my way of networking. It might cost me more time and that kind of thing. But when I went in, I would be like, okay, I'll shoot this free video for you. Now we're friends, right?
Yeah, right.
And then if nothing came of it, whatever, I spent however long it took me to do the project, and I have that connection now.
Right.
And it's
portfolio.
helped. Yeah, it's helped me down the road, and it helped with portfolio pieces. But that's one thing I didn't know going into business, is how important connections would be, because they're literally like, what's the saying? Your network is your net worth.
Gotcha. Right.
And to an extent, I mean, I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's really important to have
huge.
a good network.
So after you did a free video for XYZ company, did you go to the next company and say, hey, we worked with XYZ company?
Yep. A couple times.
Nice.
So there was like you, my first client was a real estate brokerage. So brokers, no, not brokers 12, Elite Real Estate.
Gotcha.
So I knew Kurt Gus.
Yep.
I didn't really know him, but he was, friends with my uncle who owns a business.
Yep.
And I said, hey, do you think they would let me shoot a free video? And he's like, oh, you can let me know. So he gave me his number, and I texted him. I was like, hey, I'll shoot a free video for you guys. This was in between years when I was going up and playing hockey in Canada.
Okay.
And I didn't do anything for him. And I think they gave me like a prepaid Visa gift card. And
nice.
It wasn't for much, but I didn't ask for it or anything. So very appreciative of them. But I was amped. I was like, someone just paid me to shoot this?
This is huge.
It's so crazy. Yeah. So that's kind of how I jump started into it. And then, I moved to like a coffee shop. And then after that, I did a pro bono, like a documentary for the Minot Vistas.
Okay.
And then that kind of opened up.
I remember that.
Yeah. That opened up a lot of doors for me, because I got a job offer at a news station because of it. And I got another job offer over here. And I was like, no, I'm 4 months in. I'm not going to take any of these.
Right.
But just showing your work, I think, is super important for that.
Yeah.
I want to pivot a little bit. What do you think some of your biggest successes are? Do you have any like holy grail moments where you're like, okay, let's go?
There's one random project that I got. I don't know how I got it, but it was kind of neat.
Okay.
There was a company out of Virginia, and they're a government contractor.
Okay.
And somehow they had connections to North Dakota in general. And they hit me up and they're like, we really want to work with somebody out of North Dakota. I'm like, I'm your guy.
You're like, I live here.
Yeah, that's right. And so we worked with them, and it's like one of those pieces in your portfolio where when somebody's like, hey, send me some sites that you've worked on, which is the worst question.
Yeah.
But I'm able to send that one, and it's like this government contractor. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like one of my huge successes. I think for me, milestones in the journey have been getting my own office downtown. Like that was really neat. And it's really cool feeling.
And I remember when I first met you, you were in an office down a little bit further from your other office. Yeah. And I was like, this is so cool. Cause obviously I didn't have an office at the time. Right. I still don't. I work out of a home studio, but, just going there, I was like, oh, I want an office. And then you told me, you're like, oh, I'm getting this office. And we walked through it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be sick. So
right. Yeah, that it's a really neat feeling. Yeah. It's a really neat feeling. And also this is, I was thinking about it when you were mentioning it earlier with Elite. This is like a low level one, but it's one that never goes away, I think. And that's getting paid on a project. Yeah. There's nothing like going and doing something and not getting an hourly paycheck, but getting paid directly for that project. That's a feeling that never goes away. And I don't know.
No, it is really crazy. Even the first time when someone pays you for a service, based on just show up, clock in, clock out.
Right.
And that's one thing I never really liked working jobs. I think I had like two in my life. One was at the golf course.
Okay,
like,
that's cool.
Washing clubs at the country club.
Okay.
And then that was actually probably my only job. But
there you go.
That's something where I knew I wanted to do some type of business where you could charge a price depending on, doesn't matter how much time it takes you. It's all value based.
Right.
Which is super cool. Like you said, for someone to pay you for that right away.
Yeah. That's so neat. So those, probably the offices. I have a guy that works with me. He's a 1099 contractor, but he works with me a lot. That's kind of a big deal. And then getting that being able to actually close that deal with the government contractor, that's pretty neat.
So what did the process look like for that? Did you have to sell them on it, or were they kind of on you right away? Like, okay, we're going to go with you. Or did they have a couple options and you had to present yourself?
Yeah. So like, I don't know if they had other options, but I mean, this is the internet. They might hear this, but I by default like raised the price because I knew I wasn't going to have a chance at my prices. The price I sold them at is now my standard price, so I didn't like go out of this world. Yeah. But I knew I was so low they wouldn't respect me.
Yeah, which is an important, not to cut you off, you finish the story after, but it's important to know not all the low guy doesn't always win.
Right.
Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah. I walked into a project once and I set a price and like, dude, you're going to have to redo that because I won't go with you if it's that much.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
And that's where no one wants to go with the highest person. No one wants to go with the lowest person. You want to be somewhere in that.
And if they do want to go with the lowest person, you should probably revisit them as a client because you'll probably have problems down the road.
Exactly. Because, that's one thing I noticed. If they're going with someone lower, the price matters more than the actual outcome and the results they're getting.
They'll never be happy. Correct. They'll never be happy. So I raised the price. During the process, they were doing these like conference calls, and I don't know what service they used, but they used a conference call number that we all called into. And so then one day they're like, yeah, if you could just send out the number for us all. I'm like, dude, I don't got this.
Yeah.
But Google just rolled out a feature where you could set up like a Google Meet and then you had to call a number and it worked as a conference call number. Okay. So I was like, oh yeah, no problem. So I sent that out. Just little things like that along.
So they were thinking it was a conference call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So just little things like that all along the way. There was probably 4 or 5. There was more meetings. Typically our sales process is pretty short. But in that one it was a little bit longer. And I was actually out of town. Some things happened. I was out of town on a trip and got a call from her and she's like, you're the one. I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome.
Is it a fist pump?
Yeah, it was. We were in a motel room and nobody else is in the room. So there was a fist pump. Yeah. There was probably a jump. Like
that's so awesome though.
Yeah, it was really neat. And at that point it was the highest website I ever sold. It was just fantastic. I don't know why they went with me really, but
so did it obviously ended up working well?
Still a client.
There you go. That's awesome. And that's one thing. When you start to raise your prices and the first time you send out a big like proposal, you're almost shitting yourself. Like, oh my gosh, why would they ever pay me this much money? Am I worth it? That kind of thing. And then like, yeah, good to go.
Right.
And then after that, it's like, oh shit, now I need to figure out how to do the thing for the price I just gave them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think like something to watch for, I would go into a business, I'd tell my price, and like the next word would be like, all right, good to go. Yeah. I'm like, I'm way too low. There's no way I should be giving them this figure.
And they're saying yes so fast.
Yeah, they should have to talk with it about it with someone. That's a key indicator that you're way low.
If they're snapped, they're like, yeah, how do we sign up? Where's the contract?
Like, oh no.
Yeah, let me in.
Yeah.
So now we talked about your successes. Do you have any like the biggest failures or regrets where you're like, I should have done that differently? Or, big teaching points, lesson points?
Probably like once a month. But
yeah.
One of them was, it was early on and I went and my brother found this guy that needed a website on BizMan.
Okay.
This one I still feel bad about to this day. And
we're bringing up past trauma here.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm a nice guy. I like my clients to be happy with me. Well, I try to be nice guys. Some people probably feel differently, but it was above my head.
Okay.
It was way above my head.
Like the project as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was probably like in reality, it was probably a minimum of a $20,000 project.
Really?
And I'm trying to get into this.
Yeah.
And, so what I did is I reached out. I'm like, I knew I couldn't do it myself. So I reached out, got a subcontractor that would help work on it. And it was an established company. We were trying to do it on a budget, which I don't even know that the guy cared.
Yeah.
But we were just trying to do it on a budget because nobody wants to spend money was my thinking, my philosophy. It was an incorrect thinking. And so basically the subcontractor, it got to a point where they're like, we can't complete the project as is. And now we're money invested in basically,
So the subcontractor said, we're done. We're not doing it.
Yeah, we can't do it. We can't.
Like halfway through?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And so then
I would have been shitting like, oh.
And there's money already invested.
Did you have to pay them then, the subcontractor, or did they waive it?
Yeah, it was a deal of you, like basically we're getting, because the project was so, it wasn't vague, but it was such a big project, we were getting invoiced weekly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was like $750 to $1,000 a week.
Oh,
we're a few weeks into this. There was at least, I want to say there was $4,000 or $5,000 invested.
Whew.
And so, yeah, that was a bad moment. I had to go to the client. The client actually was not happy.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. And so then go back to the subcontractor. I'm in the middle and I'm responsible to the client. And at that moment you want to be like, no, dude, you have to understand I have the subcontractor. And
yeah.
he knew that we did. But like, you want to go after money. I don't got money. You got to go after him.
I have nothing to give you.
Attorneys got involved.
Really?
On their side. And when it was all said and done, they finally gave us some money back, and I coughed up some money. And the client,
so the subcontractor gave you money back?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Not enough, but I'm like, hey, I'll give some money if you guys give some money, and we can kind of make this go away. Mm-hmm. And they finally did it. They claim it was the only time that ever happened to them. I actually, in a weird turn of events, I ran into the guy. He started another business, which is a good business. I would shout him out if it felt it was applicable. And we ran into each other and we connected like a year ago. And I'm like, yeah, man, that was a bad deal, wasn't it? He's like, it was the only time we ever had to refund money. I'm like, interesting.
This was the subcontractor guy or the actual client?
Yeah, the subcontractor guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, it was a bad deal. That one was a learning experience. I think the things that you learn from that is, one, pricing matters. Yeah. And it's not always the lowest price. It goes back to that principle. Yeah. It's not always the lowest price. It's all about the value that you're providing.
And the price I can get it done.
And that can get it done right. And then two, my biggest takeaway from it was there's nothing wrong with using subcontractors, but make sure you're not out of your league when you do it. Because if you don't fully understand the project, which now I could pull it off. Mm-hmm. It's not even pulling it off. Now we could get it done. But at the time it was way over my head and it was too far above me. And so there's some projects you don't want because there's probably someone out there to do it. You could probably coordinate it. But I think that if it's too far above you, then you could mess it all up.
So I don't know if you can give me this information, but what was the part that was out of your league? Was it just too much work? Was it just... Yeah, you didn't have the skills at the time?
I didn't have the skills at the time. So it was a heavy development project, like a heavy development project. It wasn't just integrations. It was development. And at the time I wasn't a good developer. Yeah. And so that's basically it. So I didn't know exactly everything that went into it. Really, I was still way too naive. Okay. Just with it in general.
Yeah. And how far was this into you starting your business?
I mean, it was probably a year. Like, it wasn't very long.
That's a short time frame.
Right. It wasn't very long.
In those early days, you always think you can conquer the world too. That's where things like, there's a couple jobs when I started early is like, yeah, I can do this. I can shoot a Super Bowl ad for you. Right. And then it's like, I go look at the video. I'm like, I can't do that yet. Hey, I don't know.
Coinbases where it's just a QR code.
Yeah, I can do that for sure. I don't even have to leave my computer to do that. Yeah. But and that's one thing I always say is you don't know what you don't know. Right. And then obviously you learn it eventually. But if you don't know that you're not going to be able to accomplish that.
That's fair. Don't live in fear.
Exactly. Pivoting a little bit. Do you have any, so when you're designing websites and that kind of thing, do you have any how do you get your inspiration? Do you go to different websites and kind of see what they're doing, or do you just kind of sit down and write things and brainstorm? Yeah.
So first off, we have what we call a marketing automation kit. And in that, we have a very specific layout that we use for the website. Mm-hmm. It's not completely inspired by StoryBrand, but we have a very specific layout.
It's similar to that?
Perhaps, yeah. Some of the same principles. Okay. But understand that when, I hate the word template and theme because that people don't understand what that means, really. Yeah. So all that is a wireframe. So then there's what you're talking about. How do you actually design it? Okay. So our process on that is first off trying to get a feel for what the customer's looking for because it's so wide open.
Which goes back to the KPIs.
It does. It does go back to the KPIs. We have an intake form. They have to give us at least a couple websites of their competitors so we can start to understand their business a little bit. And then a little bit of just direction of websites that they kind of like. It can be ESPN.com. I don't care. It doesn't. I just need to know kind of a general feel. And then we try to create something that's on brand to incorporate their brand so that feeling can be portrayed
with their colors and fonts and their style and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or is it more
with that side of the brand? Also, like there's one where we got into their core values a lot and stuff like that. And I think there's things that you can do that affect how the core values and stuff like that's perceived, how the company feels. So, and a really good example is this. We were working with my church. Those are always the hardest ones when it's like personal. And we created a brand for the church, and then we went and created a website. And what happened was the interior of the church was completely different than what was on the website. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you can have your pictures where you have whatever of the church service or whatever, but when somebody visited the website and when they visited the church, it was two separate things.
Two different experiences.
100%. And so we were like, all right, fine. We're just going to adjust the website. We like our brand better than that, but we're going to adjust the website because we want it to be cohesive. When somebody visits our website, we want it to feel the same way, to experience the same thing as when they experience the church. And so that's a really good example of a website portraying the brand. It does matter the colors and stuff like that, but it goes beyond that.
It's more the experience of, is everything cohesive?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're working with an oil company, do you really need something that is about flash and all this pop and stuff like that, which really you don't need at all on a website, but people want? Like, no, you don't, because that's not their brand per se. Whereas if you're working with the Putt District downtown, I mean, this can be a different experience.
It needs to be a little bit more flashy.
Yeah.
So this is one thing that I came across when I was starting my business, and maybe I want to hear your experience too. When you were first having those client meetings, those preliminary ones, discovery meetings, I call them, in the beginning, I was never asking any questions, or not nearly as many as I needed to. Did you kind of see that when you were starting too, that you needed to ask more questions?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like so focused on like, you don't want to take up, well, I was so focused on, I don't want to take up too much of their time. And then as soon as I said, well, do it, it's like, you're out. When like, that's, you for sure really need to dig in at that moment. And you're like, dude, we got to do it. All right, we'll see you. Don't back out now. Right.
And that's where I tried to ask the least amount of questions just so I could get them to say yes. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I can do whatever you want. If you want that, sure. If you want a flying pig, sure, we can shoot it. We'll figure it out.
Right.
But once I started to realize the more questions you ask, you have to see if you're a fit for that company.
Yep.
Because when I was starting, I would take every job. And now when I start, the more questions you ask, the more information you reveal that, oh, maybe I don't want to take on this client, or maybe, it doesn't align with my core values, that kind of thing. So you found that a little bit too?
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Discovery is so important. I really wish that people were open to longer discovery, and maybe that's part of sales and maybe I need to adapt more. But I think that 3 or 4 meetings of discovery would be helpful, but people don't want to commit to that. And some companies have it where it's required. I don't know. Maybe you do. But
how many meetings do you currently do?
So typically we have a couple of those afterwards, but we have at least 1 to 2, and there's certain things that we go over in those meetings to make sure that we have that information.
Okay. So how I start is when I meet with a client, the first meeting is pretty brief. The first meeting is all about getting to the number, because if we go back and forth and bullshit on, we could do this strategy, or we can create this video, and then there can be this call to action, and then at the end they throw out a budget of something that's way lower that we can't do, then we just wasted all this time. So, I'm a big advocate of bringing up money early, saying, okay, we can do your project. Let's just get it out on the table right away. How much money are you guys putting towards this? Right. And a lot of times, clients battle with, they don't want to give you their budget, which is fine. And times like that, I'll cut the meeting short and say, okay, I know the general idea of your video. I'll go back and I'll give you, usually I do 3 options. So let's say first option is a lower tier one base, just me coming to shoot the video, minimal pre-production, post-production, right? Second one is, okay, now I'm going to have one guy with me. I'm going to come in, we're going to shoot. We'll do a little bit more pre-production, kind of give you a couple more deliverables at the end. And then the other one is the Hollywood movie, right? That's for people that don't want to give me their budget. Right. But I'm a big advocate of getting the number early, just so we don't have to waste time. And then the second meeting is really when we go in and go, okay, what's your call to action? Yeah. What is, if this video gets watched 10,000 times, you get 10,000 sales. How much money are you making off it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, we're a lot the same.
Okay.
Ours is a little bit different in that we have to figure out if there's what custom integrations, what features and stuff like that, because that can expand out a ton of dev time, which you're the same a little bit. It depends on what type of video they're wanting to shoot. But once we have that, then we're able to put together, and we have probably an initial meeting that's going to be like 10 to 15 minutes long, which is just going to be getting to know each other, learning about the project, trying to get that budget number. And then we're going to have a little bit longer meeting that's going to be about 45 minutes long, 30 to 45 minutes long. That's going to begin to dive in a little bit deeper.
A strategy meeting.
Yep. And we'll present numbers unless if there's something that new that came up and that would derail that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think I'm a big advocate of, that's one thing, if I had to give advice to someone that's just starting business, is ask as many questions as you can.
Yeah.
The people aren't going to get annoyed because it's their business. They want it to be successful.
Right.
The more questions you ask, the more, and it kind of looks a little shoddy and unprofessional if you're then sending a text or email after that, like, oh, I forgot to ask you, who does this or who, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's better to left no stone unturned rather than, okay, I need to meet with you again because I didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah, you're 100%. And really, if you get good at asking questions, it will position you as the expert rather than
correct.
You think you'll position you as a noob, but it doesn't. It positions you as the expert.
If someone goes in there and asks 4 questions and they're out of there in 8 minutes, that's kind of when people are like, does he really know what he's doing?
Exactly. If you're going in, everything's compared to the doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to the doctor, they ask a lot of questions.
1,000 questions.
Yeah. And there's a reason why they do.
Yeah. So just a couple more questions here for you. If you had to give a piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice to someone that's just starting a business and just getting into the industry, not specifically, the web industry or marketing industry, but just any business in general, what would be your advice to these people?
Yeah. Go to mywebsite.com. Just kidding. I think the first
thing, talk to me and I'll figure it out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first thing is, we already talked about it, but build a network. Mm-hmm. And that network is there, whether you need probably one on a personal side and then people that are in your industry and then obviously clients, but you need support. It's so hard going and building a business by yourself. There's so many ups and downs and you need support. Make sure you have that support so that way when it's rough, you keep going and you get through it. I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice that somebody can have. Beyond that, I mean, it's a fun ride, man. It's going to take you places you don't even know.
You got to go with the ebbs and flows too.
Yeah. And something that I've been going through lately, I've been told this by my dad a lot lately, is don't worry about the outcome. Mm-hmm. We get so fixated on the outcome. So if Mark Zuckerberg's trying to be the $1 billion company, it never would have happened at Facebook, but he never was worried about that. He was just trying to create something.
The best product he could. And that's what you need to do. And if you do that, you'll enjoy the ride a lot more. I like that advice. Create the best product you can, because then if you do, the money will come later.
Exactly.
That's one thing about video. I dump a lot more resources into some videos than are originally in the budget, but it makes the video so much better, which in turn brings you more clients.
Right.
Last question I got for you. What is the North Star? Star. Look at that little connection there. What is your, is there anything you're really striving for, a big goal you're shooting for? What can people expect? What are you going for?
Yeah. So I was just having a conversation about this earlier today. What are we trying to do as a company? We're in this transitional period because I read something. Sorry, I'll take a step back. I read something recently in sales. The strategies that you use to get to 50K are different than the strategies you'll use to get to 200K, which are different than the strategies you'll use to get to $1 million.
Okay? I like that.
So we're in a transitional period where we're adjusting our strategies. We've really helped small businesses be able to build online presences, but we're trying to, I think there's like 3 things we're working on. 1, offering better, more complete marketing services to our clients.
Okay.
So we are a one-stop shop and we want to advertise that way. We don't want to be known as a website design company at all. That's gone.
Because you want to do more of the marketing and some of the social media stuff. Because I was looking at your website before you came in for this podcast, do a little bit of research, and you obviously have a few different routes that you guys go down.
Right. Yep. 100%. And it when it all flows together, it creates a better product, of course. 2, there's something that we've been really looking into because we see it as a need, and that is helping companies, those large or small, companies to mid-sized companies, build out training platforms. Okay. So go and build the platform, do what you do better than I do, and what we'll ever do, because we're not trying to do the same thing. Build basic training videos for a course type deal. So then rather than having, these companies are spending a lot of money on a training dude that has to go in there and physically train these people.
And he gets like a salary or, one-time fee if it's someone they bring in from outside.
Depending on what it is. And a lot of them is group training. That's just stuff that we're required that our employees go through this. It's not hands-on training where it's actually needed. Mm-hmm. Okay. So go and save companies money that way. And then the third thing, we have 3 paths. And one of them is, we're doing a little bit of both, but that's one of the main ones. We're thinking about starting another product that is going to help churches. We have a marketing automation platform. So like text message, email marketing, booking appointments all through one platform. Okay. And so we're going to tie this in and try to create really an affordable solution for churches to be able to market online. So
that's sweet.
Yeah. Those are the
good for you, man. That's awesome.
Main things that we're working on.
Well, cool. Awesome. So that's what Jonathan Starr will be working on. Thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite. It's been a blast.
Yeah. It's a really good conversation. If you guys enjoyed this, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Jonathan, where can they find you on the internet?
We are at Starr with a double R, STARR, webmarketing.com.
Perfect. Well, Jonathan Starr from StarrWeb Marketing, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Sounds good.